I know.
Okay. Welcome back to the From the Fabricator podcast. I'm your host, Max Pearlstein. Thank you so much for joining me. Another month, another what I consider a great podcast. This podcast, though, before I get into all those details, brought to you by My Glass Class from the National Glass Association. Check out myglassclass.com. Over 100 courses, including 60 of them, 60 plus in Spanish, built by the NGA, built by members of this industry for the industry. Check it out, myglassclass.com. The best learning aspect and learning tool in this industry, bar none. So check that out. Thank you. Quick one before we get to the podcast: the registration for Glass Conference Tacoma for out in Tacoma, Washington, Pacific Northwest should be a really great conference. That opens up on May 3rd. Technically, you want to be there. It's going to be tremendous. And I actually might be there. There's a possibility you might see me at a technical conference, which could mean that we could probably have another tornado or epidemic if I show up at one of these things. I hope not. Anyway, looking forward to that registration opening up on May the 3rd. That is coming up quick. Anyway, now to the podcast. Really interesting mix of people this month. We kick it off with Jeff Dalaba and Ben Beeler from NACC and AGMT, talking certification, quality. You're really accomplished guys and important subject matter. Then I go to Asta Fivgas from Reflection Window and Wall, architect, project executive there. Brilliant woman, really on the ball. I think you're going to hear a lot more from her in the future. She is powerful. I'm thrilled I got to her now because she's going to blow up. And then I end it with an interesting program that's helping out a lot of glass and glazing companies called Service Station. And so that one is going to be a fun one too. So let's get this thing rolling with Jeff and Ben, and we will see you on the other side of the interviews. Okay, next up on the podcast, thrilled to be joined by Jeff Dalaba and Ben Beeler, NACC, the North American Contractor Certification Program, and also AGMT, the Architectural Glass and Metal Technician Program. You can find them online at naccprogram.com, also agmtprogram.com. We'll talk about what those programs are, how they work, how they affect our industry in a moment, but very, very important to our world. And thrilled to have Jeff and Ben with me. Jeff, Ben, thanks for doing the podcast.
We're glad to.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Both of you have been involved in the industry for a while. Ben, obviously a little longer. We'll get to you in a second. We'll start with Jeff, though. Your background, how you ended up in the wild and wonderful world of glass and glazing. A little bit about your past.
Yeah, I still scratch my head a little bit about how I got here, I guess. But started out in the nuclear industry. I actually had some Navy experience. I worked on a fast attack submarine, did some tours under the polar ice cap back in the day, and worked as a reactor operator. Left there and worked in certification for nuclear power plant parts, Class 1E, which basically is anything that needs to shut a reactor down or cool it, and certification for that. Did some insurance work, and then moved into the glass industry somehow, actually through a friend, John Kent, who we all know, and
Sure.
And started in that, worked in certification, and then started this project in 2014, which has been a lot of fun.
So 2000. So you have been. I mean, I know you're funny, a relative newcomer compared to Ben and I, but the 2014, you've been around for a while. You've seen some things.
A little while.
Yeah,
Some days it feels longer than others.
No doubt. Now, Ben, you go way back. I know your past is varied though too, because you have done more than just the glass industry. But I think a lot of people that are going to listen and watch this pod know you from the glass side of things. But those who don't know you, a little bit about your past.
Well, I started out in the glass business in high school, actually, working summer jobs in high school and college, working for a family business, which was a glass fabrication company in Virginia. And after those summer jobs, it was enough to make me realize I do not want to get in the glass business at all.
There's where the very comes. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually worked as a agent, as an investigator for the State Bureau of Investigation in Georgia, the GBI, for a couple of years, and then 5 years in the food service industry, working for two different food service manufacturing companies. And then decided, well, maybe glass business isn't so bad. So I went back in 1983, back to the family business. I was with this company for 32 years. We manufactured IG, tempered, laminated, heavy glass, things like that. Retired in 2015 and started doing some consulting by accident. And then I've known John Kent for years because our products were certified through his company. And then started doing some work with AGMT and NACC.
Sure, sure. And you're also a published author too. You're going to hide
Oh,
that.
geez.
You weren't going to mention the published author part, were you? So
Yeah, it's a fiction.
it's a good fiction, and in the top, I think I'll mention it, at the end of the show when I do at the end of the podcast, I give my TV recommendations, which you're always clutch on. I am going to prop your book too, so that comes up. So it's great to have you guys here, and so you're both obviously involved with NACC and AGMT. I've been a fan of these programs because they're so important. But again, it does amaze me that I'll be at a show and again, you guys have been at shows and conferences, and somebody will roll up to you and say, "What is this?" And they'll be surprised, even though there's been so much coverage of it with companies signing up for it and installers getting certified. So, Jeff, let's start with you. A quick explanation on what NACC and AGMT are.
So, yeah, absolutely. NACC, North American Contractor Certification, started with one purpose, and the purpose was to improve the industry for glazing contractors. That meant improving performance for glazing contractors and also improving the market for glazing contractors by allowing a way to recognize glazing contractors that were doing the right things, that were making and taking the right steps with the right systems and processes in place to have consistently successful outcomes on glazing projects. On the AGMT side, AGMT was set up as a way to minimize the risk for stakeholders for glazing projects, and also minimize construction defects, basically, that can be caused by an installer that doesn't have the right knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform successful glazing work. But a big part of that is defining the glazer body of knowledge and being able to test to that glazer body of knowledge to determine not only what they know in their heads, but how they can utilize that with their hand skills and be able to have successful installations. They're the last ones touching the product as it goes in. So this control that has to go through the supply chain makes a lot of sense to have controls all the way along, right up till the last time it's touched and installed into a building.
And I think for you, Ben, because you worked in the industry for so long, it probably is one of these things that you looked at when you got involved with John Kenton and Jeff here at NACC and AGMT of like, wow, this is something that's really, really needed, because here as a fabricator, we work hard to make the product. And we don't know what happens to it afterwards. Does it get into the hole the right way, and so on and so forth. So you probably is something you probably wanted all along, and probably that's why you took to it so easily.
You hit the nail on the head. There's so much that's done during the design phase, during the manufacturing of the product to assure that it's proper. And then it goes out into the field to a glazing contractor who may or may not have worked with those products before, who may have a successful track record or not. There's no way to distinguish in the industry between those that do and those that don't. So this was the final touch to make the entire supply chain ironclad. As Jeff said, once it's out of the field, if it's not put in wrong or it's not put in right, then everything that was done prior to that is for naught.
Right. And I guess the initial thing was that we, in one of the meetings that I attended with you guys, somebody had said, well, hairstylists in most cities, have to be licensed, but a glazer does not. And I found that really interesting because, you screw up the installation of a product, like Ben, you were talking about the design considerations. You screw up the installation of a product, the whole building, you've got massive issues. I mean, multi-million-dollar issues.
Right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how this thing kind of came together. And now I guess the big question is, and again, I'm with Jeff Dalaba and Ben Beeler, NACC, AGMT. Find them online. As we're talking, you can learn more about naccprogram.com, agmtprogram.com. But so far, I think the acceptance has been pretty strong. I mean, it seems like once people understand what it's about, they're like, sign me up. Am I reading that right, or we still got a long way to go?
You're reading it right. It started off a little slow, NACC back in 2015, a few contractors each year. But for the last 2-3 years, it's been a flood of people who have made applications for certification for varying reasons. Some curious to find out what the program is, what it entails. Others because of specifications. It now shows up in specifications on a more routine basis. Master spec, in fact, one of the spec writing templates for close to 80% of the architects in North America has that in their template for a installer qualifications, both NACC as well as the Glazer certification, AGMT. And a lot of people recognize a twofold benefit. One is the recognition and differentiation in the industry, setting your company apart, setting your glazers apart from those who haven't been. And the other is just improving business management systems. Yeah. If you put the processes in place to meet the NACC requirements, then it is a better run company.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's the thing that I've liked the most. And I guess for you, Jeff, as you started to build and develop this program, did anything surprise you about the way it's grown and the acceptance of it?
It started out with some early adopters, and the early adopters got on board, and there was some word of mouth of, hey, this worked for us, or this helped our company become a better company. And that type of word early on, because we weren't in specifications early on, right. that type of recognition of what this has done for them, making them a better company, making them communicate better, evaluating their systems. We had a contractor early on that said, "Gosh, I've never really had anybody from the glazing industry come in and look at my business or talk to me directly about my business." This almost created a consulting opportunity for me to really get a checkup in a way that improves our business. From there, of course, moving into specifications, and along with that, tying the AGMT piece in, really this, since 2019, we've seen steady growth. Earlier than that, it was that early adopter phase, with most programs or anything like this that we had. But it is definitely making progress. There's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of industry out there, and members of the industry that we hope will accept this and make the industry better by doing this. But we still have some ways to go.
No doubt, and it does make the industry better, and that's the biggest thing I care about, was that we've got to be better. I mean, one bad job, especially on an installation, makes us all look bad. And that's what people remember. They don't remember the thousands of great jobs. They remember the bad job, the one bad job. And that's what we're trying to eradicate here and make everybody better because of it. And I do think, Jeff, the specification piece is huge. Being in master spec, and it gets to a point where you've got to do it. If you want to do a big project, big architects are putting this in the specification that you have to be NACC, part of the NACC CC program.
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked hard to try to educate the stakeholder community, the design community, the general contractors, everybody that's involved in the project, including the owners. At times, it is an overwhelming task to try and say, how can we train everybody? How can we make everybody aware of this? And through marketing and through avenues of social media and others, where we're able to get that message out there faster than we ever could before. But there is certainly a need for this. I think everybody can point to, well, this glazing project went wrong, or we had this happen on a project before, and gosh, I wish we would have known this beforehand, or we had to bring somebody in on time and material to repair, something that was done or not finished. And so, everybody's had that experience. And I think once there's a realization that this is available for them as a way to minimize those types of experiences and maximize their opportunities for a better glazing project, they'll look at certification and see it as a necessity for the industry.
Beautiful. It works. And now, one of the misconceptions about NACC that may pop around is the fact, or not the fact, that the story or the word was that it's only for union contractors. And Ben, obviously that is not true. This is open and available to each and every one of us in the entire industry, correct?
It is. The union has done a terrific job of publicizing it. And right. So a lot of the signatories are aware of it before non-union glass companies might be. But it is open to the entire industry as long as you meet some of the prerequisites, like the number of years in business and the type of competency categories you've got. Right now, roughly a little over 20% of the certified glazing contractors are non-union, or they're non-glazing union. We've certified ironworkers before. We've certified companies that are carpenter signatories, all manner of people within the glass industry.
Yes, because that's the other thing is that it's not just a glazers union that is installing glass.
Correct. Correct.
But
and
it
the
is.
same goes for the
Yep.
AGMT, the glazer certification. You do not have to be a union glazer in order to become certified through the AGMT program.
And the training on the AGMT program is individual training. It's so crucial right now, especially in this day and age. You know, it just allows companies to set themselves apart from the rest.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so we have to lighten things up for a moment. We'll get back to the heavy stuff, but I got to have a fun question in here, and I'm curious because both of you are worldly, in my opinion. You both have you both have seen a lot more than me. You know, that's for sure. I get to Dusseldorf every 2 years, and that's my excitement in my life. And I don't leave my hotel usually, other than to go eat. But so I have to ask, best vacation ever for you guys. Ben, I'll start with you. Your best or most memorable vacation ever.
Well, I'm going to give you two
Okay.
because they're two different types entirely. We go annually to the beach every year on the East Coast with the entire family.
Nice.
Children, significant others, grandchildren. There's nothing that quite replaces the memories that come from those type of family vacations. So
You bet.
bar none, that is truly the best. But the most unique that I've ever had was a couple of years ago going to Iceland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was on my bucket list, not at the top, but something came up, and my wife and I were able to go over there for about 10 days. And I would go tomorrow, given the opportunity. It was some of the most unique food, unique scenery. There was just a surprise around every turn. It was really fantastic.
And you strike me as like the type that you will go in and try the food because you're there and you've got to do it. So
I'll try anything once.
I love it. I love it. Fantastic. That's very cool. All right, Jeff, you favorite or most memorable?
Geez, I flew to Pittsburgh last week. That was a lot of fun.
Hey, I grew up there. There you go. Yeah.
No,
Steel City.
I love Pittsburgh. It's a great area, and it's enjoyable there. But yeah, I've got to go with Ben on this. You know, this family thing. With adult kids, being able to tie them into this and have them as part of this. We've done a couple of really great family vacations or something with the kids. Went to New Zealand for a month with my son and stuff when he was in school over there, which was fantastic. And the trip to Costa Rica, which Costa Rica just offers something for everyone, from whitewater rafting to zip lining to beaches to wildlife. I mean, it's all there and stuff, but did that with the entire family. And that was absolutely fantastic. So anytime we can get those kind of opportunities, we certainly look for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great choices on all, and I will continue to live vicariously through you guys in your travels for sure. And I know you both get a ton of travel through NACC and AGMT, going crisscrossing the country, signing people up. So that leads me to my next question. Your NACC, AGMT, you're growing. What's the big challenge though right now that you face out there, and how do you overcome it? Jeff, you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I will say when we started this, we were a bit naive coming into this and saying, okay, the industry wants to build a program like this. We have great support. Everybody came together as stakeholders and as glazing contractors, even glazers, to help us build this whole thing. We operate with an industry board that is made up of volunteers from throughout the glazing industry and stakeholders and design community and glazing or general contractor community. But I think there was, at least for us, we kept hearing, build this thing, get it into specs, and then everybody will participate in it. And if it was just that easy, we'd be much further ahead. I mean, last year, tracking the Dodge report, we've been in over 2,000 specifications on projects. This year, we're over 800 already. So we're seeing this increase in this growth in specifications, and that's just from the Dodge report, not even capturing everything. But the challenge we face is this has to be a collaborative effort by everybody. That means that the general contractors and the owners have to enforce this specification. They have to say, it's not just about a race to the bottom of the lowest bidder all the time, regardless of their skills or their abilities. We have to look at, who's the most responsible and the most qualified bidder, and have a way to, establish that and enforce that. It's the architects specifying this. It's the glazing contractors, driving this. By being a part of this, and even to a degree, manufacturers and suppliers, encouraging this. We had a recent talk with a supplier. They've been very supportive of us, and they said, I wonder if there's some way we can work with our clients to recognize them better, and whether it's giving them better lead times or whatever it is, by being certified. So we're starting to hear some of those things, but it really comes down to the entire industry has to accept this and look at this as a way to improve overall.
No doubt. Ben, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to add this. Some part of the obstacle is some of the business owners that look into the program and look into what some of the requirements are, which are fairly significant. And they say, well, that's, we do that. We don't need the systems. We don't need this requirement. What we're doing is fine.
Right.
So never mind. It's an attitude that's pervasive in the glazing industry. That's what we're doing is good enough.
Yeah.
I'm a large company and we've got a great reputation, so we don't need to do these things. Or I'm a small company and I'm making all the money I need. And so what we're doing is good enough. And that's really the biggest obstacle to quality improvement and process improvement.
It is, and it's frustrating too, because it's just not the greatest of attitudes on either side, because this is really for the betterment of the company, and who would want to pass that up. But you do go through that, and we mentioned John Kent earlier. John Kent's gone through that with IGCC and SGCC for years of people finding ways around that.
Yes.
And that's safety, and this is safety too. In some cases, obviously you have that in your process, but it is amazing how some people try to get around it. And me as an ex-fabricator, I would love to sell to somebody who has NACC certification, because I know that they are going to do the right thing with the product. And not, nobody wants to make things a second time. Nobody has time or money to do that. So you want it to be done right. And it's interesting that you have some fabricators saying, hey, maybe we can come up with something creative to take care of these folks that are certified. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, indeed. And as a fabricator, you were fabricators as I was. You do look at companies differently,
yeah,
based on their experiences, based on any kind of problems that you've had with them. And maybe this is a well-kept secret in the industry, but you price them differently.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Companies that you're not going to have a problem with, and companies that you sort of know there are always some problem or another. And so the NACC is a great way to distinguish those two types of companies apart from each other.
Max, what we're really trying to do with this, and what has been successful as a result of this program, is we're moving the industry away from, hey, our people are the process, to we have a defined process that's based on consensus of our management, consensus of our team, and really consensus of what best practices are for the industry. Time and time again, we've gone into anywhere in the construction industry, and you say, how is this being done? And they say, well, we have a foreman that's overseeing that, or we have a shop manager that's overseeing that. And that's great.
Yeah.
You want to have competent people that are in oversight positions or in management positions that can control quality. But the reality is you can't catch everything. You have to have defined processes. You have to have checklists. You have to have some written procedures in place. And we're not asking for everybody to reinvent the wheel here or to try and create 150-page manuals. Simple procedures, simple checklists that can be focused on improving quality. Where the problems are going to occur. Let's do a little extra double check in those areas to get a second set of eyes on things and make sure that things are done right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I have Jeff Dalaba and Ben Beeler with me, NACC, North American Contractor Certification, AGMT, Architectural Glass and Metal Technician Program. They're online at naccprogram.com, agmtprogram.com. you want to check those out. And I do think that, we run into this issue of the quote unquote, that's the way we've always done it factor. People like to have their way. They don't want to change their way because it's worked in some cases, and they don't want to upset it. But again, this is for the greater good to try to improve things. And we all don't know everything. This is what's been interesting about your program, is that I look at some of these companies in your program and they're fantastic, at what they do. And there's a reason that they are, is because that they're constantly looking to have that continuous improvement that something like these processes bring.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Indeed.
Cool.
Yes.
Now, so before I have one final question about the markets, but before I move to that, any final thoughts or approaches with NACC and AGMT that you guys want to get out there?
I guess maybe a little bit, maybe a little more direction on the question there, Max.
Well, I just didn't know if there's any other pitch with regards to why somebody should become NACC certified or AGMT, get their people going through the AGMT process.
I think it's kind of like going to the doctor and getting a checkup, and I don't want to compare this to going to the doctor's office because there's a lot of negative connotations to that. But just the idea that, if you evaluate where you are now and evaluate where you want to get to, it's very healthy. And this is a process where it's not overly invasive. It's a way to have a second set of eyes in your organization, come into your organization and work with you. I mean, we work as a team. We are trying to make sure that each client that we work with feels that this has helped them improve. It's given them a path for continuous improvement. Each glazer that we work with to do testing with, they come away and they say, this test was hard, but it tests what we do every day, and it was fair. And if we can have this kind of feedback, that this improved our company for NACC, and this is hard but fair, and we appreciate it because it recognizes what we do every day. If we're getting those kinds of responses back, we feel that we're heading the right direction with this.
No doubt.
I'm constantly amazed sitting around a conference room table where I sort of expect a little bit of pushback on some of the requirements, and I talk about the requirements and what the benefits are. And I look around the conference room table, and the people seated there are sort of looking at each other and kind of nodding like, yeah, that's happened to us. And, this would have helped us prevent this problem we had. I'm always encouraged when I hear those kind of responses.
That's big. That's big. All right. So to wrap it up, I'm real curious. I ask most of my guests this question about how they see the markets going. What's the forecast or the economic climate out there? And most are obviously in a different position than you guys are, because they're either fabricating the product, manufacturing the product, installing the product, sort of thing. You're a different step away, so you're seeing it a lot of a different view. How are you guys seeing the economic landscape out there? Because again, you're certifying people, you're out in the field. What's the vibe out there? Positive, negative? I mean, there's a lot going on, and I'm just curious on what you guys see.
I think everyone has sort of an expectation of a slowdown that's around the bend, yet they haven't seen it yet. The reality is that they're still very busy, and there's a lot more focus. They're being reactive. There's a lot more they're being proactive. The focus is on short-term backlog right now as opposed to long-term. And I think that's why so many of them are still very busy.
No doubt. Jeff, anything else on that one?
Again, contractors that are doing the right thing are in demand, and we were seeing that all over. Hearing good reports. Certainly, there's areas where they say, yeah, things have slowed down a little bit, or I can't be quite as selective as I was before on quotes that we're giving out or bids that we're going into. But it seems strong. We seem to be seeing strength in contracts and awards coming in. So I think it's still continuing to grow.
Beautiful. Well, we got to keep that going, and you guys got to keep these programs going, because they're fantastic. The NACC program, which you can see online, NACC program, all one word, .com, and the AGMT program, which is AGMTprogram.com, all one word there. to check out more and learn more about what's going on. You can also, see these guys at various trade shows. If you're going to Texpo, you can learn there. Glass Build, they've been there before, and so on. Jeff Dalaba, Ben Beeler, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate what you're doing for the industry with these programs. These are difference makers, and it will make us better. So thank you both for doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Appreciate your support.
Always. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, a new one for me, somebody I'm just meeting in person for the first time. We've got on the podcast, Asta Fivgas, project executive, Reflection Window and Wall, out of New York and everywhere else. Where you can find them online at an incredible website, reflectionwindow.com. Asta, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Thank you, Max, for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you for a bunch of reasons. You're a fascinating person. The research that I've done on you, it's got me excited to learn a little bit more about you. Melanie Detmer from the NGA, was the one who turned me on to you to say, you've got to talk to this person. And whenever Melanie gives me a direction, I follow because she's always right. And so it's great to get you on here. And what I was most excited about getting to know you is you're an architect by trade. You're a trained architect, and you're here working on the glazing side of the world. And so that's kind of neat for me. But let's start with you personally in your past. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school, and then get into architecture, and then on your way into the glazing side of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Iceland. My dad was in the Navy, but we moved back to the States when I was a baby and lived in Southern California until I was about 8. At that point, we moved to very rural Down East Maine, and I was there through most of high school. Finished high school in Manchester, New Hampshire, and then went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and never left New York City.
Nice, nice. And what made you want to be an architect? What was that kind of drive there?
Yeah, so I was reading your questions and thinking about that earlier. And the funny thing is as a kid, I really wanted to be a lawyer. That
Okay.
was like what I would tell everyone when they would ask me what I wanted to be. I'm going to blame watching a lot of Law and Order on that one. But
Okay.
the reality is that when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time, drawing. My mom's an artist. And I would draw floor plans of everywhere that we lived, everywhere that we visited, all of my family's houses. Asked for a lot of graph paper for gifts growing up. But, when I got into high school, it kind of clicked that, the, the way that I love to explore spaces and be in spaces, and thinking in 2D and 3D, that there was an opportunity there that I could kind of combine all of that thinking and focus on architecture as a career. So
Nice.
once I kind of figured out like the ethos around like being an architect and architecture and the opportunity there, I never looked back.
I love it. I love it. And so you went in full bore, you got your degree, you're working in the architectural world. What was that like? Because the reason you probably looked at that question and be like, why, that's a weird question. But for us, in the traditional glazing industry, we have this mythology of the architect, like, oh, yeah, I want to be friends with that person sort of thing. What was it like over in the architectural world?
Well, I think this is actually a great question, and I spend a lot of time talking about this with people. I like to be part of mentorship opportunities and
Hmm.
just women in like construction and design industries. And I think that my experience was I graduated in 2008, so that was obviously a very magical time in the economy.
Yes.
Um, and I had been working in high-end design as my internship, like high-end residential. And I started working at a really small design build firm with some really great people. The company was super lean because obviously things were slow, but I had all of this exposure to, you know, buildings and all the aspects of it, not just kind of slaving away on some, big house for the Hamptons.
Right.
And I think that, with architecture, there's this kind of ongoing philosophy that you have to struggle, you have to work long hours, burnout is like totally normal, like not being paid much is like totally okay.
Right.
And I know that the industry at large, like we're trying to like address and fix that, but I got burned out. I was
Yeah.
working a lot, the pay was not great. It just kind of created an environment where I didn't enjoy design anymore
Sure.
because, I was working 80-hour weeks.
You got
So
to do what you love, and
yeah,
it's a big thing. And you obviously at one point loved it, but then when you get into it and it grinds you to a nub, it kind of takes it away.
yeah. And I think that there's, architecture can be very magical. And if you treat it as like a job, but a job that allows you to like live a life around it, not as your entire life, it creates a very different environment. So I went through that. It was good. I'm so grateful for the experience. I wouldn't change anything about it because I think that all of that led me to my next job, which was an opportunity at Thornton Tomasetti, and I was there for about 6.5 years, where it kind of opened my eyes to the opportunity of technical architecture
Right.
versus just working in a design studio. And I don't know if I would have ever considered it or been open to it if I hadn't gone through the slog of the design side of it first.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so you had to run in architecture. The driving force to come to a powerhouse like Reflection Window and Wall was the fact that you wanted to use that skill set you have, but you were also tired of kind of being ground down. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, well, at Thornton Tomasetti, so I working in technical architecture, it gave me the opportunity to contribute in a way that wasn't just on the design end. So
Gotcha.
the it gave me the chance to work with teams where I could help kind of guide the design and be instrumental in making sure that the ideas and the reasoning behind the aesthetic could stay intact. But at the end of the job, when we were going into fabrication, that it was a real thing, that it could
Yeah.
really work, that we could
Sure.
actually build it. So it kind of changed the script a bit where I would get, I still feel as much fulfillment, but I didn't have to be the person coming up with the initial idea, the initial kind of gesture, if you will.
And were you familiar with Reflection Window and Wall while you were at Thornton Tomasetti? Did you have them on the radar, or is it kind of fluky?
Not at all. No, it was completely uh, random almost in a way. I had been more and more interested in working on new facades, and there wasn't really a pathway at the time that I could transition to a team to focus on that. I was doing a lot of existing to new build outs, connecting like jewel boxes on towers and reclads and stuff like that. And I've been talking to a recruiter, and I was like, I'm just open to an opportunity. Maybe there's another opportunity out there. And someone I knew from the industry who was working at one of our competitors was actually helping interview and hire for the role at Reflection. So I was like, I don't really want to work in construction, but I'm curious, so I'll take the interview.
Gotcha.
And it ended up just being kind of a great opportunity where all the things I was looking for, like really hands-on, like diving deep into new builds, really contributing to, how we build the sustainable aspects of facades and all of that. Uh, they were focused on that too. So it was a really good fit.
I love when we steal talent from other trades. This is great. This is huge. Again, thrilled to have you here. Asta Fivgas, project executive, Reflection Window and Wall. You can see them online, reflectionwindow.com. So now you're on the glazing side of things, and I'm curious what your day to day is like, just because I know you handle a lot of responsibilities from coast to coast. Quite, from what I understand. What's the average day like for you?
So I think, construction's such a fast-paced industry. It's a lot of we don't want to be reactionary, but it's a lot of reactionary things because there's so many different cogs that are turning all at the same time.
Right.
Right now, I mean, I'm involved in both the New York City-based projects, the ones that we handle from this office, and our San Francisco-based projects. And we have a lot of things that are in design and in fabrication release. So I think my day to day right now is a lot of meetings with architects and developers and GCs, finalizing drawings, working through atypical details, and coordinating that with our engineering teams to make sure that we are building the best product available. I've also been working on a lot of sustainable initiatives with the company. So looking into, you know, triple IGUs and different types of like paints to fulfill AMA 206 that might be more sustainable and environmentally friendly, vacuum.
Hmm.
IGMT, etc.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's great because you've got that background. And I think probably, my assumption is when you meet with an architect, they probably take you a little bit more seriously because you were one of them at one point. And you still are, obviously, but you speak the language.
Yeah, and it's actually been really fun. I'm working on a job in LA with Shop. They're the design
Hmm.
architect, and they're all based in New York City. So I was like, oh, we should get together. Let me take you on a tour. Let me take you to see some buildings. And so I got to walk with the team in some jobs that we've completed. And it was funny because the entire team, they all sit next to my first year design professor in the office. So it was like this very funny, like full circle experience.
Nice, nice. And okay, so you like the glazing world? How's it been for you? You happy here?
It's been great, and I think that it's just been really exciting to, I guess, participate more and also see like more women come into
Mhm.
the field and more architects and engineers entering like the contracting side of the field. There's a lot of really good opportunities, and we're building some amazing things. So never a dull moment, that's
A-
for
a-
sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to talk about business, and we're going to talk about your efforts on women in construction and women in our space here momentarily. But I got to break it up with a fun one, since you are handling both New York and San Francisco, and you are definitely a worldly person, because I know you're always on the move. Curious, which city is better, New York or San Francisco? San Francisco's got AIA coming to it. But New York is great. And then what is the best restaurant, or the must do place or restaurant in each city?
Oh man. So New York City forever. Love
Love
the
it.
West Coast. The East Coast is my best coast. So
Like it.
always New York. But I think San Francisco is really fun, and I think that the AIA event there is going to be a great time. I may be going. We'll see what happens.
Hope so.
But I would recommend that if you're out there, spend an extra couple days, spend the weekend, and go up to Napa or Sonoma. My personal favorite winery. I actually have a couple up there, but
Nice.
I would say do a little tour. I think that's one of the best parts of being in San Francisco is you drive an hour and you're in wine country, which is great.
Nice. Nice. And New York, where's your go-to restaurant or place? I mean, since that's your place.
Oh, I mean, there's so many of them. But let's see. Lately, I took the team out for ramen last night. We went to EAK Ramen, which is over on, I think it's on 11th and 6th. Solid, very low key spot.
Nice.
And for steak, St. Anselm in Williamsburg will always be my favorite steakhouse. Very low key as well.
Perfect, perfect. I love it. And if you do go to San Francisco, you got to come to NGA has our Blueprint for Collaboration event. That's at the Halliday Building in San Francisco, which was one of
Oh,
the first
awesome.
buildings with the curtain wall in it. It'd be great to have you there. We had a great success last year in Chicago with that, with almost 100 different architects, and a really good conversation between all the different fields. And you check the boxes in a few of them, so it'd be great to have you there. So I just had to throw that plug in there. So if you do come to San Francisco, you have an open invite for that.
Well, thank you. I will definitely let you know, and I would be happy to join you guys.
That'd be awesome. A couple more questions. I know you're swamped because you're juggling a lot. Business right now. It's funny. I'm laughing in my head. You graduated college in 2008. I mean, my gosh. And nowadays it's kind of in the same world. We're just getting out of COVID. We're still dealing with some of the after effects. We're dealing now with these crazy, bank issues. We're dealing with interest rates. How is this year looking for you guys? And how about 2024? I mean, reflection does massive and important work. So, you've probably got a good eye on what things look like out in the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, with living through 2008 as an adult, then I've seen it all at this point, as you have as
Yep.
well. We've had a full circle.
Yep.
Um, but, there's still a lot of development opportunity. I've seen a lot of jobs that went on hold during COVID come back alive that we are chasing, and a few of them have been awarded or notice to proceed on them. So I think even though stuff is slower than we thought it was going to be going into, Q2, Q3 of this year, it's still moving. And another interesting thing that I've noticed is, as I help a lot with the business development stuff all over the US, we're bidding jobs everywhere. And a lot of like I don't want to call them second tier cities in a bad way, but just like not a San Francisco, not a New York,
Sure.
not Chicago, but like Philly, Nashville, We're seeing stuff in Vegas. We bid a job in Idaho. Those cities are having a huge boom, including like North Carolina.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be the next couple of years, we're going to see even more development in those types of cities. And, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Boston, stuff's always going to happen, just a different pace.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And I appreciate that. It's going to be, to me, I think we're all resilient. We're going to keep battling. I do think that, some of these issues that are going to come up just make us have to hustle harder, and be more creative and work harder. And those companies that are organized and, have their act together are going to survive and thrive in some cases. And you guys are absolutely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, COVID really hit home the fact that we can be more agile. I can run a job from New York in another market until it hits the field, and then we just need boots on the ground. And so I think it's about, using your team smartly, making sure the right people are on the right jobs, and just getting creative.
Absolutely. And that you are, and that comes from your background. So let's talk about, I obviously it's a important subject to you. It's a very important subject to me. Women in glass and glazing. It is something that, is, big time in the NGA's angle, big time for me, as I mentioned. And I see from you, you're working hard to grow that impact as well, at Reflection, and trying to get that going. How is that process going? How welcoming are people? What sort of obstacles are you running into? What can we continue to do to help grow this women in glass and glazing profile that is, I think, a nice little trend going, but it's got a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even from my time in the industry, both, architecture and then moving to construction, it's changed a lot. I think that I would have never seen myself where I am currently, but now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Having a more balanced team, having more, men and women in the workplace, I think allows for better share of ideas and experience, offers like a different angle on things that happen. And it's a great environment. It was awesome being at NGA in Nashville last year because we took a group photo of all the women at the event,
Mhm.
and there were like over 100 people. It was really, really, really cool. And same with Reflection specifically. I hire a lot of women. We're seeing a lot more women getting hired in some of the other offices. Um, it's an inviting career opportunity because there's a lot of upward growth potential. So you can take it as far as you want to. And I was thinking about, I was talking to someone the other day where the first year I started 5 years ago, we took a team photo of like the project management team across the US. We were like all in Chicago, and I was the only woman in the photo. 5 years later, we took a photo of just the women at Reflection, and it was a huge photo. It was like a
Wonderful.
tremendous, we're getting, it's almost 50-50.
Love it.
But I'm looking forward to, as more women join the company and also grow in the company, having more women in leadership. And it's always exciting to meet counterparts in other companies who have those roles.
It's definitely a part of this process is A, you want to get more women in the door, but B, you want to get more women higher in the pecking order and into the management. And I like the fact that you personally are working hard to hire more women, and that's a big key. And I appreciate that. So what do you, if there's someone in college right now or in high school and they're looking at a career in the construction side of things or the architecture side of things, what sort of advice do you give them? Because I know it's not as easy as some people think. And I've had some other women on the podcast who've told me some of the adventures that they've had. But what sort of advice would you give somebody starting out into this sort of segment?
I think that I would say that, you know, really think about what you want to be doing. Like, do you want to work for a sub? Do you want to work for a CM? Do you want something more general, or do you want something more specific? If your background's like, if you got an architect or engineering degree, how do you want to utilize it? Like, what type of conversations do you want to be having on a daily basis? Because it's a lot of work, and it can be high conflict, but as long as at the end of the day, you really enjoy what you're creating with the team and what you're kind of touching and contributing to, then it's very satisfying. So the other part of that is that construction is very relationship based. So
Hmm.
I would say, reach out to people on LinkedIn that have career paths that you're interested in. I guarantee most like, I'm very slow to respond on LinkedIn, but I will respond, and I'm like happy to answer questions and help guide that. I also am on Reddit a lot, and I will respond to people's requests on Reddit asking questions about, what do you think about this decision-making process? I'm interested in XYZ. What do you recommend? So it's, ask questions, meet people.
Did not catch you for a Redditor. That's got me on that one. Did not see that coming. Very, very cool. No, I like what you have going, and the one thing I can tell you, the glass industry is extremely relationship based. I have you noticed that since you've been over on this side of
Yeah,
the world?
it's like a big industry, but you know everyone. So it's a lot like
Yes.
architecture. You still know everyone, same players. But I think it's a very like welcoming community, and there's just so much opportunity. There's so many people doing cool things, and you know, go to an event, make a friend, message someone on LinkedIn, go take someone out for coffee. Like, I think making the relationship will get you so far.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I hope we can get you back to it will get you hopefully to the Blueprint and collaboration event in San Francisco, but also get you to Glass Build in Atlanta this October. We're going to have another Women in Glass and Glazing event there that Melanie and team are heading up. So hope to have you there. More information coming on that. But I'm thrilled that you took some time to talk to me. This has been great to have you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Max. I really appreciate it. And again, anyone hears this, they've got questions about how they can get involved, please find me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a chat.
That's Asta Fivgas, project executive, Reflection Window and Wall. Find her and her company, great company, reflectionwindow.com. Thank you so much. And we'll see you hopefully later on this summer.
Thank you, Max. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Okay, next up, this is a cool one for me. Austin Casey from Service Station. He's the CEO and co-founder of Service Station. You can find them online at goservicestation.com. That's all one word, goservicestation.com. Interesting product. I wrote about it on my blog a few weeks ago. Got a little bit of interest back, and I wanted to continue to grow this because I think it's the way that the world is headed. So, Austin, thank you so much for doing the podcast with me.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to hearing all the great things you have to say, and would love to, answer any questions you have.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, first off and foremost, let's talk about you personally. I mean, you're the CEO and co-founder. Neat product here, neat company that you have that is I think disruptive in a very positive manner. But let's talk about you. How did you end up in this role, getting into this company, building it, and supporting the glass and glazing industry?
Yeah, great question. It's sort of a long and twisty road. I'm originally from the East Coast, actually. I was living and working out there, and my wife was living with me in Hoboken for about a year. This was before we were married. And she's from Montana, and she looked at me and she said, you know what? A lot of people here, I need to go home. I said, okay. So basically picked everything up, picked up life and moved out to Montana. Now we have 4 beautiful children. She's incredibly supportive. So it's really worked out in the long run. But there was a difficult period there where I was kind of like, okay, my industry, I was in the finance industry.
Okay.
And so it didn't really exist in the same way out here. So I did some consulting. I had a friend reach out. My talent is really in building financial models. So that, she needed some help. So I helped her for a little while. Then I was actually playing on a rec soccer team for us old men who, can kind of, we pull a hamstring every time we're running around anymore.
Oh yeah.
And I met Jim, and he had run Service Station. He was running Service Station at the time, and it was an auto glass contact center. And him and I sat down and had a conversation, and he said, I'd love to be able to do something similar with flat glass, be able to sell remotely, sell across the country. And I said, okay, well, what do you think you need to do that? And we sat down and put it down on pen and paper and sort of identified that in the service industry as a whole, not just in glass, but, pest control, painting, there was really, and this was 2018 at the time, there was really a lot of great operational software, but no one had really focused on that customer experience to kind of say, like, what does the customer want? And so we said, well, let's, grow both businesses at the same time. Service Station can expand into the flat glass side, shower doors, et cetera. And we can build a platform that's really focusing on the customer and how shops interact with their customers. And that became Bid Clips.
And Jim, you're speaking of, is Jim Evans, who
Yes.
was a past podcast guest of mine, and very outgoing and gregarious guy as well. So that's how you got kind of connected into it, and so there is a connection with Big Clips, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. So, but Service Station kind of, and you got started through that process.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So through that process, of looking at Service Station from a how does this grow into be more holistic into the glass industry and not just auto glass, kind of grew the platform and then grew Service Station alongside of it. So there's that cohesion there. Where we leverage Bid Clips and the platform to do what Service Station does, and it really allows us to interact with our customers. So.
And we're going to talk in a second about what does Service Station do, because I'm sure people are yelling at the podcast right now saying, okay, what does it do? But I have to ask, but Hoboken to Montana, first reaction, I mean, I assume since your girlfriend and then became your wife was from Montana, you had been there, but moving there, being an East Coast guy, did you have any sort of like, oh, wow, I'm not in Hoboken or NYC anymore sort of moment there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's one of those things you kind of put out in the universe or God or whatever you believe, kind of like, it lands in your lap. But when I was a kid, there was this show on called Everwood. And it was about this
Treat Williams. Yeah. Treat Williams was, exactly. I love that show. That show.
And he moved from, big town life, I guess you would call it, to small town, and sort of that transition. It was one of my favorite shows that I kind of always thought, that lifestyle looks great, And so I always thought that as a kid. And so I sometimes wonder if the universe was like, that's what you wanted, like, here you go. And so that transition from a personal perspective has been great. The hardest part, I'll say, is, I have a lot of good friends and family on the East Coast. And so I always tell people, if I could pick everyone that I love over there and move them out here, life would be perfect. So, but we do get back to the East Coast every, a couple times a year, and that's really
nice and great pool with Everwood. I love that show. That was a fantastic show, and one of my favorites way back in the day. So good stuff. Good stuff.
It was a good one.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, you got me on that one. So let's talk Service Station.
Sure.
Tell me, because again, I posted on my blog. I put the link on there. It is definitely a next step to help companies, basically do their work. But you probably can explain it a lot better than I just did. Please tell me what Service Station is.
Yeah, so Service Station is, we call it a contact center with a focus on sales. So what we do is we interact with your customers as a shop on behalf of you as the shop, and we sell jobs for shops to essentially help them with the estimating process and to basically make them more efficient, right? Because if you have a technician who's a really excellent installer, right? What you want to do is you want to make sure that that technician is installing as much glass as humanly possible on a given day. And if they're going out and they're doing estimates and they're not, maybe your closing rate's 80%, maybe it's 50%, right? If they're not closing 100% of their jobs, then there's some wasted time and effort there, right? So the main idea behind Service Station is to take that process or offload some of that process from the shop. So we mirror your pricing, we mirror your schedule, we act as the shop, and we sell those jobs on your behalf. And we're positioned all around the country and in Canada, so the US and Canada, and we take those inbound phone calls, inbound web leads, and we just work them for you to basically put jobs into your operational process. The other cool thing about it is we do it with down payment attached to it, right? So one thing that we always promote is, don't book a job without having some skin in the game from the customer. So we want to ensure that we have like really solid deliverable jobs that go into your pipeline that are specific for you with your pricing.
And you've built a staff of talented and experienced people too. So it's not like if somebody signs up with you and does it, they're going to get, the big fear of the, foreign call center aspect sort of thing. Right. This is real. This is not just somebody reading off of a script. You go through the process. That's where I guess when Joe, your one of your key guys, introduced it to me, that was the thing that really impressed me, is that you're not messing around. You're training people to do this.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the other key pieces that I'm glad you brought that up, Max, is I think everyone understands the labor difficulties that are out there, right? And to train someone up, even if they're, you know, a front desk person, and get them to the point where they understand glass well enough to be able to have intelligent conversations with customers, and ones that aren't going to end up with you in a bad position as a shop, can be really difficult, you know.
Yeah.
And we have a saying here, we like to say glass is, you know, of the service industry, is probably one of the more difficult ones, because there's so many nuances to it, right? You have auto, you have flat, you have shower, you have, you know, a commodity, you have a creative aspect. I mean, to package all that together into a person takes a lot of effort and training. Yeah.
And you're doing that for, for these glass and glazing shops, and
Right.
kind of carrying that for them. And so that's kind of what impressed me, is that it's not your typical outsource, basically, is what I'm saying. Because I do, you read about some of these things like AI right now taking over customer service,
Yeah.
and it's all, you call and you get automation sort of thing. And this is not that. This is still a human, and this is also a human that is trained in our space.
Correct. Absolutely. Yep.
So that's big. That's big. So now you mentioned Jim Evans before, bid clips. And it's funny, I know I'm being somewhat facetious. Everybody has bid clips. I think the whole world has it. Every day I hear from somebody else that is telling me about bid clips. So I love the product. Had Jim
Good.
on, a while back. Big fan of that. How does Service Station work with bid clips? Are you guys are you integrated? Are you not integrated? Can somebody have one without the other? Talk to me about the combination with bid clips, since there's a connection there.
Yeah, and that's a really great differentiator. And sometimes this gets blurred a little bit, so I'm glad you asked. So you can have both separately. You can have the platform, use it internally in your shop, never have to use Service Station ever. If you have Service Station, you will have the platform, but you don't have to use it as your primary mode of anything in the shop. What it's used for in those instances are, we communicate internally, specifically on jobs or service requests with the shop. And that's really where you live, to be able to just, as Service Station, talk with the shop, because Service Station lives in bid clips. It's really a platform that, the way it works is, we connect all of the shops to one of our platforms. So we have a Service Station platform, and when you turn us on from Service Station, we just flip a switch, and then we start seeing your leads coming in, and you start seeing the interactions that we have with you. So it's really tightly integrated from that perspective. And what that also allows us to do is to see your exact pricing. So we can see your pricing, we can see your tasks, we can see your schedule, everything that lives in bid clips, we can see it on the Service Station side.
Perfect. So I'm with Austin Casey of Service Station. He's the CEO and co-founder of it. You can find them online, and you definitely want to check this out at goservicestation.com. So you can see basically what we're talking about. This is a game changer from a customer service standpoint in the glass and glazing industry, with professionals being involved. And really, it's interesting. I did not know your background before we talked, and this is actually the first time we're getting to talk, because I've been working through some of your folks. And you coming from the finance side, probably has opened up a bunch of eyes coming into some of these customer service centric things, like you mentioned before, like painting and pest control and glass and glazing. But what's been the most surprising thing since you've launched Service Station and got rolling into it?
Oh, that's a really great question. The most surprising thing has been, for me, the most surprising thing has been, I guess, I'm typically an optimist, a perennial optimist. I'm like, if you show everyone the math, and you talk about it, and you kind of lay things out before people, and it makes sense, it sort of will just make sense, right? I think the most surprising thing for me has been, one, the challenges in showing and demonstrating to the market in general, kind of like, hey, there's efficiencies here, and we can capture them together as a team, And I think in a lot of ways, there are challenges just sort of getting people to see those efficiencies. Now, that was a little surprising to me, because the world that I come from, that you brought up, is like, the numbers don't lie, and the numbers are the numbers, right? And there's a lot more feel in these industries than I had sort of anticipated. And it's very tactile, right? Like, people want to feel it, they want to touch it, they want to smell it, and they want want to like, get their hands on it and get dirty with it. And that was, that's been a little surprising for me, which has added a degree of challenge, but it's a good challenge.
And I like how professionally you answered that question, because we as an industry, and me have been in it for so long, we struggle with change first off, and we also struggle with really numbers and data. We are not a data industry. When people say, well, how much does the industry do of X or Y or Z? And I'm like, there's not great benchmarks in this industry. And then when you get into something like this, where you're saying, look, I can improve your efficiencies, I can do this, it does become a gut feel, like, we're good with what we have. So I can understand how that probably has become a challenge, but you're used to coming from, you show it in black and white, or you show it on a computer screen to somebody on Wall Street, and they're like, hey, we got a winner here, let's go. I mean,
Right.
let's buy. So I can see how you saw that. So it's a good answer, and you handled it very, very smartly, because you don't want to also frustrate people too, thinking that more than they do, but you're trying to deliver the answers to the test, which right. I think is good. So overall, though, you're building some clients into the service station side. It's obviously not as established as BidClips, because I think it came after, correct? If I understand things right.
It actually came before. Service Station is older than BidClips on the auto glass side. It's very newer on the flat and the shower doors.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm a flat glass side, so that's why I understand it that way. So how has been the reception? People happy with it? You gaining more customers each and every day? What sort of feel do you have right now with it?
I think the overall feedback that we've gotten has been immensely positive. We have one client who said to us that they lost an ISR at one point, and they feel like if they hadn't had Service Station, they would have ceased to exist as a shop. And we get a lot of commentary about us being an integral part of the shop, and we always work hard to act like you. We take feedback from all the shops that we work with. We're constantly reviewing all the different aspects of how we can work with them better, how we can sell with them better, and how we can work alongside them. And I think our clients do appreciate that. We're not some huge call center where you're just another number to us. You are really an integral part of our business, and our goal is to be an integral part of your business. And that's what we hear the most from our clients.
Strong approach. Like it very much.
Yeah, so we're definitely growing. Right now, we actually have I would call it a backlog of people that are waiting in the onboarding queue, which is really nice to see. There is a lot of heavy lifting on the front end. One of the things that we find that's really interesting that a lot of shops will struggle with in onboarding is, because we have to mirror your pricing and we have to be able to sell jobs for you, we take shops through a really intense, pricing review. Well, where we'll even go so far as to call competitors in their market and say, like, hey, you guys are probably a little overpriced here. You're probably a little underpriced here, And I think that makes some shops a little nervous. And that's what makes the onboarding process go a little slower, is they have to take a step back, and instead of working in their business, they have to work on their business. And those are two very difficult, it's a difficult thing to separate sometimes, where you're like, I'm just going, and now I have to take a step back and actually look at what's going on. And so that's probably, been the roadblock in some of the onboarding, but we are growing, and we are, always looking for more clients to add, and want to continue to help shops here every day.
No doubt. And I could see, I think you could understand how people get squirrely with pricing, especially, but that's what you're hiring, if somebody's hiring you to do that, you want to hire them to do it and do it right.
I tell people all the time, sorry to interrupt you there, but I think it's a great opportunity for nothing else, just to take a look at your business. Even if you're like, we're going to turn you guys off after 2 weeks, just take basically the free pricing opportunity, like, hey, we'll help you. We'll walk you through a lot of the pieces of your business, because we have a lot of heavy lifting to do on our end too. We are going to become you. And that's, we want to act like you and talk like you and smell and think like you.
And that's what separates you from either a typical AI, which is becoming popular, or a typical call center, which people despise.
Right.
So that makes the difference. Very cool. I like it. I'm excited to see the progression of your company, Austin Casey of Service Station. Find them online at goservicestation.com. All right, that will wrap things up for this month on the interview portions. Really, really fun stuff, and really thankful to Jeff Dalaba, Ben Beeler, Asta Fivgas, and Austin Casey. Great people, interesting concepts and interesting approaches, and wonderful to have them on. As I wrap up every month, quick look down the TV thing. But before that, I mentioned in the interview with Ben and Jeff that Ben had written a book. And if you stayed on this long to listen, you get rewarded, because the book name is a great one. It's Shields of Deception, that Ben wrote. Really good book. It's been a long time since I've read it, but if you're looking for a read, it is on Amazon, and it's called Shields of Deception, written by Ben Beeler. Go ahead and check that out. And if you show up at Glassboard or something, bring it. He'll autograph it. I don't even think he'll charge you to autograph it. He charged me, I think, because that's where I rank. Anyway, check that out. But I always talk about some TV shows that I'm watching. Mentioned on my blog about Night Agent. I thought that was fantastic. If you haven't watched that yet, pretty fun, easy, empty calorie sort of stuff. Some faux pas on the glass and aluminum though. So you geeks like me will pick that out, especially in episode number 2. But good stuff. And then right now I'm watching The Diplomat on Netflix with the great Kerry Russell, who comes from my second all-time favorite show, The Americans. So Kerry Russell, I'm all in. A couple episodes into The Diplomat, and it's been pretty good. So again, nothing that's earth-shaking or groundbreaking, but all good stuff to take the distraction into account and get us away from some of the real world things that we have to worry about. So that's that. So I appreciate you checking that out. I appreciate you listening to this and watching this and supporting. It means a lot. This episode was brought to you by myglassclass.com from the National Glass Association. Make sure you check that out. My Glass Class is where you want to get your education and your folks' education. Check it out at myglassclass.com from the NGA. That will wrap it up. Next month, again, another great group of people I've got lined up. We are rolling along on this podcast, and really, really thankful for everybody who's checking it out. It means a ton, and hope everyone stays well, and I will see you next month.
Oh, the music is stopped.